Game day brings its ups and downs, celebration and disappointment, anxiety and relief, friends and enemies. You can always argue over who should have won, but everyone can agree on great food. Appetizers, entrees, drinks, party platters, or even the taste of sweet victory. There's something for every season at Eat With Us restaurants.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 5.
Welcome into Mississippi Live Weather at 5. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. As we have said all week long in the Room to Room Weather Center, ice is a potential, and now we are here facing it and what could be an ice storm of significance. Hopefully you have prepared accordingly because it's going to be ratcheting up, unfortunately, over the course of the next 24 hours. We're looking in Batesville. We're starting there where traffic is fine, trees look fine. Could Batesville be the heart of the most significant ice from this event? I do think it's possible that between Panola County and here in Lee County, we could have significant icefall totals in excess of 1.5 inches, and it's not impossible to have some in excess of 2 inches. Easily the most significant ice event since I've been in Mississippi in the last 15 years could be on the way. There are some things that we know that are slightly different, and we will talk about those in a minute. In Tupelo, on kind of the eastern edge of that peak impact region, as we're looking out here at this time coming in on Mitchell Cunningham Bowling Skycam there with the sun. We'll say goodbye to that for a day or so and hopefully look through just as many tree limbs by the time this is done. 41 degrees in the Tupelo area at this moment and time. Aberdeen, the question for you in southern Monroe County, are you far enough south to avoid the worst of it? Northern Monroe County, Smithville, Amory, in a worse situation than you are down there in Aberdeen. We are hopeful there's more warm air for you, so at least somebody misses out. We'd like us all to miss out. But one of the things that we do know, looking at some data coming in at this hour from Oklahoma, is related to this warm nose, and that's what this warmer layer is here. We've talked about snow eater. We've used other terms for it. Soundings, which are weather balloons sent up in Oklahoma and back in West Texas, have shown that this warm nose in reality has not been quite as pronounced and quite as thick. What does that mean? It could mean a number of different things for us. Number one, it enhances the likelihood that we see frozen precipitation, and I think that nudges it potentially farther south in some cases. And so with less of a warm nose, that means maybe less of rainfall and more freezing rain, but that also starts enhancing the potential that maybe some locations that have looked most impacted could get lucky enough to see more sleet. You might say, why is sleet lucky? Sleet is more solid and less likely to coat lines and less likely to produce power outages. So we're hopeful that maybe some of our most significant totals could have a little bit more weighting towards sleet. That's not something that we're prepared to say at this point here. That's new information coming in, and we're waiting for that to be adjusted by our models. A few snowflakes on the back end, not an impossibility. But again, this new information coming kind of on the latest data from West Texas at this time. So the highlights this evening, the question we ask you as we look out of our camera toward roads that'll be more tricky there in Smithville. Are you ready? Have you prepared? Our window of time is decreasing. As we mentioned last night, we were good all day today. We think we have time into this evening to still maybe handle some very last second preparations of where you will be, because you will probably be there for a few days because accumulating ice is likely for many. This will be an ice storm. The question is it going to be a historic ice storm? And only history tells us to compare that. But significant ice accumulations will cause power disruptions, and that will cause traffic disruptions through the weekend. Again, this is not everybody, but this is a lot of us. Let's talk alerts at this time. These remain unchanged from earlier today and largely unchanged from last night at this time. The counties in purple that you see next to me, those are ice storm warnings in effect through 6 p.m. Sunday. And a reminder on that time, 6 p.m. Sunday, and it goes into effect tonight. That means 48 hours where we are going to be subjected to some form of wintry precipitation. Hopefully most of it's out of here by midday on your Sunday. But again, timing on the back end of this, we're still 2 days out. Could it linger longer? That is a possibility, but I don't think it goes beyond Sunday evening. Certainly the ice it leaves could. Winter storm warnings in effect for locations in pink there. Peak impacts there, again, accumulating snowfall, also included potentially in some of those spots, again, accumulating sleet. But the ice storm warning, for many of us, the heart of the viewing area that has trusted us for years, all these counties here until 6 p.m. on your Sunday. Purple counties, you see Vernon and Hamilton, Alabama, you're under winter weather advisories. Those winter weather advisories, lesser accumulation amounts possible for you, but accumulation nonetheless still possible. And then the locations in blue, still, as we talked about earlier today, kind of the question mark. Are you cold enough? We will look at the latest guidance, which has gone a little colder, and that does not swing as well for you coming up here in a couple of moments. So the first 12 hours are pretty dead simple. Not much this evening, but overnight things get treacherous. Plan by the time you go to bed tonight, and again, by tonight, I'm not saying 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm saying before midnight, we need to be where we plan to be for the next couple of days. And that might mean adjusting our plans based on power availability. Let's be crystal clear here about something. Our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard, spent part of the last half hour talking with his wife, making an assessment, they're pregnant, making an assessment about, are we good at our house if the power's out for a couple of days? And that is a possibility. And a discussion we have, and a discussion we need to have and be thinking about with elderly. Because if you go back to some historic events, once the ice starts happening, once the tree limbs start falling, travel becomes very treacherous and you might not be able to get to other folks. So again, we've had some days to prep, and hopefully we have done that. And by tomorrow morning, there will already be icing occurring from many locations in our region. Mama Justice Doppler radar, there is nothing in our region at this point here. Looking back into Texas, I mentioned some of those reporting stations, the weather balloons going up there in Oklahoma and in Amarillo, showing again the depth of the warm layer to be less significant than what models had. But they are much farther removed from the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, both those locations here, I'm looking from Corpus Christi there to Amarillo, that's 500 miles. And from Oklahoma City, which is basically where Norman is, it's 400 miles. Whereas in Tupelo here, we're only 200 miles. In some cases, you can see they're half the distance. And because we're so much closer, our warm air is much more likely to verify, even if we are fortunate, or they are fortunate enough that it's less significant there. For us, the significance of that warm layer and the melting that occurs from that does remain highly likely. We're going to keep it on the wide shot here and show you how this progresses on Futurecast. And again, this is a winter storm that stretches almost from coast to coast. And there's a lot of waves back behind it. As you can see there, wave back all the way to Las Vegas, Nevada. And then obviously the one that we have here moving through Oklahoma and Arkansas this evening and moving to our area overnight. Occasionally, and for folks out here in the Delta, I'm talking about you, Greenville, or Cleveland, or Shelby, or Clarksdale, or possibly Tunica. Sometimes this runs a little bit faster on the front end if it's slightly more saturated. That is one of the other things that soundings showed us that the models had tended to underdo. They underdid the moisture, which is ridiculous considering when we look at the moisture for this event, it's in the 99th percentile for North Mississippi. What that means is about as saturated, about as much moisture as you're going to get for a winter weather event. It's something we do not lack, and models have slightly underdone that. So that means it's possible that late this evening, I showed 10:30, 11, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, as this kind of moves in, that we could have some icing near the Mississippi River before some folks go to bed tonight, depending on how late you're up, obviously late tonight. Now, should you stay up waiting and worrying about this? No, get your sleep, especially while it's more comfortable in your house, because we probably won't have a whole lot of power disruptions this evening and tonight, but they could start for tomorrow, because as you note here, even in the morning, some of those darker blues showing up in this. We'll layer temperatures on top of this here in a minute, but this mix is a combination of maybe some snow, but more likely sleet and freezing rain. And that combination there can be trouble and will be trouble and could be heavy, and that could be significant. So after starting off at 24, I show us getting 26 by 9 a.m., 30 by noontime. While I go 32 at the freezing point for the high temperature, notice we keep heavy precipitation, or at least widespread precipitation around all day long. And so a lot of that for many folks will be freezing rain and sleet. That's ice storm, that's ice impacts. Could there be some snowfall? I will say this. There's slightly greater hope to have a little more snowfall in this. If the warm layer is less pronounced, that could move the snow layer down farther south. But does this go all the way to a snowstorm? Dear God, please. But I'm not so sure. Well, I'm pretty sure it probably won't. Again, coming up here in 60 seconds, we're breaking down the threats. We're focusing on the peak area of concern. You're continuing the conversation here, discussing everything related to this. Apologize that went green behind me there. I'll have to change that behind the scenes here in a minute. But join the conversation. Join in as we're talking about this. Let us know what you're thinking, and we'll let you know what we're thinking as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
When you've been injured, don't settle for a lawyer who doesn't even know where you live. Call Langston and Lott. Local lawyers, personal service, real results.
Out with the old and in with the new. It's time to save big at Room to Room's New Year's sale. Store-wide markdowns 50 to 70% off. No tax, 48-month special financing. It's a new year at Room to Room Furniture in Tupelo. There's no place like home.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
I'm going to start you off with well, let's see if we get this fixed. Hold on. We're gonna clean up here. Give me a moment. That's fun. Give me just a second to figure out what's going on with that behind the scenes here as we work on my window capture. You know what? We're going to just send it back to the 3D Weather Center here for a second, and we'll worry about that here in a minute. I want to show you a graphic that I did not make. This is something made by the folks at the National Weather Service, and it's an aggregation of a lot of different products here. And in the Room to Room Weather Center, you see that the brightest color over this entire winter storm, over the entire country, and I want to show you that this isn't just us talking about this. This coming from the National Weather Service there, the most likely place to have what it describes as extreme winter weather impacts is in this stripe here, stretching from up in Tennessee through much of North Mississippi. A sign that, unfortunately, we are up against what could be a significant and obviously very impactful winter storm situation. So that's what, of course, we're talking about a lot in the conversation here behind the scenes. But again, this is accumulating ice fall. And in particular, if I look at snow over the next 3 days, as you can see, that's not it. It is the ice in particular. That is where the impacts come. And for us, somewhat over the next 24 hours, but mostly as we go from late Saturday and really second half of Saturday into Sunday. So we will have some over the next 24 hours. And for some locations, that will be significant. But when this really continues to load up is as we go through your Saturday and late into Saturday and then into Sunday. And again, Sunday morning, Sunday early still remains a time frame where we could be dealing with thunder, sleet, thunder, ice, and maybe, well, all aloft at least starting off as thunder, snow. Your day planner tomorrow starting off in the mid-20s and then getting up to around the freezing point. For some locations, we hit the freezing point, but for many, we might not. And we'll talk to our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard, a little more about that here in a minute as he's watching that. By the way, behind the scenes there, Gabe, I see the monitors off, so we'll get that on ready to go. So we're up and ready for that when the time comes. Your hour-by-hour forecast has the percentage there at 50% as we're looking towards 7 a.m., 70% by noontime, 80% by afternoon. This is widespread rain. This is all day. This is freezing rain. This is sleet. This is, unfortunately, an ice storm. So, threats, impacts. Accumulating snowfall. It's not a 0. It shows up on the graphic, but it's a 1. And it's maybe slightly better to see a little bit of that up near the Tennessee state line than what it looked like last night. That is an adjustment that we'll be talking about. Accumulating ice and sleet, though, 5 out of 5 threat. Highly confident that somebody has ice accumulations in excess of an inch and potentially close to double that. It's on our projections. You saw it last night. Unfortunately, we're seeing more of those kind of congealing around that possibility. Some thunderstorms are going to be possible. That's always a concern and where the heaviest precipitation comes in. And travel impacts and power impacts are likely for some, and while power impacts are likely for some, and travel impacts are likely for most of us, as again, freezing temperatures are there. This is the same graphic, with the exception of saying through Sunday at the top there, the exact same graphic we showed you last night. So same level of confidence, but we're one day closer. Our peak impacts in this orange area here, Boonville, New Albany, Tupelo, Bruce, Houston, Grenada, all with the potential for significant accumulating icefall. Now, it is still possible in the best case scenario. Maybe we're luckier out here in southeastern Lee County or Itawamba County or Monroe County. But I still think there in Amory, I'm not super duper excited about the way things are looking, because I still think icefall in this pink zone is possible. And I do think on the eastern edge of this, and we've talked hopefully a lot about this the last 24 hours, on the eastern edge of this, there is going to be a zone that if we see thunder something has an enhancement and maybe should be expanded in with that peak threat. But confidence, again, remains fluctuating because it comes down the where exactly that freezing line lands. So let's walk through this with Futurecast. So Futurecast starts this evening. As we talked about before the break, light precipitation will already start to fall by 10 p.m. out here. Clarksdale, Shelby, Cleveland, this will be some sleet. God willing, maybe a flake or two, but hopefully mostly melting down into rainfall. This is our HRRR model. It matches up very closely with our strike model. You can see between that time, next 4 hours between that and 2 o'clock in the morning, fairly widespread showers out there. A lot of this is a mix of sleet, maybe some snowflakes, and possibly some freezing rain. And yeah, there is a little bit of snowfall on there. And that's one thing that has been a little more aggressive on our latest run here on our HRRR model, a sign that, again, that weather balloon data kind of getting in there and possibly trying to bring in a little bit more wintry snowfall. Let's look at temperatures, and we've kind of layered that on top here. So as we go into your Saturday, snow primarily for locations up into Tennessee. For most of us, it is this mix, but we're also looking closely to where that freezing line is. And that's one of the things I'm going to be, as we're looking at this graphic here, talking a lot about, kind of on watching this like a hawk, because yeah, you're right there sitting at 32 in Starkville and 34 in Columbus. So we do have, again, that edge of kind of that warmer air somewhere around there. And that is going to try to work northward, but can it win? So that's about where the freezing point is, maybe just a little bit below that, slightly north. But you see how Amory luckily is sitting at barely 36 and Tupelo is at 30. Don't quote me on those numbers. I know you will. But the reality is that means a world of differences between what's primarily rainfall on this expectation there in Amory and what is clearly not in Tupelo. Hence the sharp cutoff in some cases we're going to get as far as significant ice accumulations are concerned. But you see Senatobia back here at 22, 25 Clarksdale. There's no question out here in New Albany, in Bruce, in Grenada, in Greenwood. This is some kind of ice, sleet. I'm going to be honest, I'm hoping sleet mix. Sleet is better than freezing rain. And so maybe we're lucky enough that cold layer is slightly thicker and it's more sleet there, and that would keep us with less power outages. That would be the hope. But as you'll note here, through around 3 p.m., there's a fight going on. We can see that this is trying to fall as sleet in Eupora, but 41 the temperature, yet 32 there in Kosciuszko. Warm air is trying to fight in, and that is a challenge. I honestly think that's an anomaly. I bet if we advance that, that's going to drop right back down, and it does. Again, there's that fight between the warmer air trying to come in, but for a lot of us, the majority of us, it is frozen something. Freezing rain, sleet, maybe some snowflakes. Here's hoping. Cheers to that. But you'll notice that there are quite a few spots, Golden Triangle, where we're maybe just a smidgen above the freezing point. Hopefully that's the case. But then as we head toward 8 p.m., notice the temperatures are dropping. More of those northerly winds, more of that cold air slipping in. And, right here at the freezing point in Houston, And over here in Grenada, if you look closely, you can see just a little bit of green showing up in there. This is one of those concerns where we get those little blips of green that perhaps that's that thunder something. We'll come back in, we'll look close in on this, but I want to show the wider shot on this first to kind of get an idea on the thunder, whatever it is, because we do have that unstable air moving in. And even on our HRRR model, this is not our strike model, so this is not our most aggressive model. We do see what looks to be somewhat thunderstorm related. I mean, those are clearly thunderstorms down there, right? Down there. And so we're kind of in the north end of some thunderstorms. Don't be shocked to hear rumbles, but that's not good. We don't want to be fighting that quantity of moisture, and we could be there. I mean, and clearly even into our area, you can see there, south of Kosciuszko and Louisville and Aliceville, those are thunderstorms. And look what the temperatures are here. We're 33 in Kosciuszko. We're 33 Upor, 32 there in Houston. So right at the freezing point there. But we've also seen temperatures up here toward Tupelo go up a little bit. And if you've got a really keen eye, you might be looking at these wind directions and you can kind of see what's going on here. North winds kind of coming around like that. South winds, fighting up here. But then right up here around Iuka, I'm going to zoom in closer so you can kind of see it. I'll also clear that off. You'll see how there's a little swirl going on there. We basically have a low pressure center that's going to truck up the East Coast, cause issues that direction there. It's developing right overhead. And that's where some of the inaccuracy in this forecast has come from, is because, well, I mean, it's basically getting going right on top of us, which makes it tricky. And yeah, more thunderstorms out there. That means isolated, pretty hefty amounts. You can see on the east side there, it's clear to see where the thunderstorms are. You just have to look for the red. But on the west side, when I'm looking at these dark pockets back there in the delta, those are probably also thunderstorms too. And they might be thunderstorms producing ice. So let's re-rack this. Let's go through this again. And let's walk through this closer in hour by hour for you. So if you're expecting to go out Saturday night, you're wrong. Don't. It'll be dangerous. Last thing we need is first responders trying to get to you as you've slid off the road. And yes, your four-wheel drive truck is great in snow, whatever. You can't stop on ice. That's the problem. And once you start sliding, no amount of hitting the brakes is going to help, because when your wheels aren't moving, there's no way that your brakes can work. I mean, they're just holding on to it and you're sliding. Do not try to venture out in this. It's going to be hard enough for first responders. Please don't endanger their lives and other people's lives by going out there Saturday night. It is not worth it. We're around the freezing point, and God willing, you're a degree or two above. But you'll notice this is widespread. This is relatively heavy. This is primarily rainfall east. Columbus, hopefully they continue with this, but we show you a little above the freezing point there. Amory, maybe we're lucky enough as well. Starkville, I'm not feeling comfortable at 33. Neither am I in Louisville at this point. But you'll notice there's that warmer air trying to move slightly farther north. And you can even see kind of those arrows there kind of circulating around. That's where that low pressure center is basically developing right overhead. And when you're developing a low right overhead, it's easy for them to be off by 50, 60, 70 miles. And as you'll note on here, 10 miles is the difference between mega icing and not. So that is an incredible question on this, because this is developing right overhead. But if you look closely on here, you'll see again how dark some of these are getting. And on the last couple of frames, right there, Sunday morning, if you look here in Carroll County, that red, I have it set up when ice is occurring at greater than 50 dBZs, it comes in as red, meaning that would be a heavy thunderstorm if it were a normal thunderstorm. But now we have a heavy thunderstorm occurring back in sub-freezing temperatures. That's your thunder freezing rain. That's your thunder sleet. It's starting off as thunder snow. Maybe we're lucky enough we get that to the surface. But either way, you're going to hear some rumbles, and that's going to be heavier amounts of whatever it's producing at that point in time. Here's that low pressure center. We depict it right overhead, a real curved up system here. And when you think 3D on how these systems work, the warm air starting from the Gulf of Mexico comes around this and then actually aloft curls all the way back around. And so that adds a little bit to the instability here to helping these thunderstorms try to form. So when can we wrap this on out of here? Unfortunately, you can see what this does. This continues to have fairly heavy precipitation even through 9 o'clock in the morning there, and even some heavy snowfall on the backside. Now watch closely with me. I'm going to advance this and we're going to go to our strike model. Notice how it is even heavier on the thunderstorms on the front end. So believe it or not, there's a severe weather threat down closer to the coast. Is it inconceivable we could have a couple damaging wind gusts? No, it's a possibility with this system, believe it or not, as it moves away. And the precipitation on our Futurecast here, I think moving out too quickly. I would hope to see, I want to check something here, actually. Hold on, stay with me for a moment. Because I think that still has an adjustment on it, on this. No, it does not. Okay, so it does go that light that quickly on our strike model. I think that's overdoing how quickly it dries out. And still possibly a little sleep on the back end. Yeah, it's not impossible to have some snowflakes. I do think it's possible to wrap down a little bit of snowfall on the backside after this is all said and done, believe it or not. I don't know whether at this point you'll consider that a good thing or not, but I'd say it's a possible thing. And because of that, I wasn't going to go this far out, but let's do it anyway. Let's look at going to the final leg of this kind of event as it rolls through, and that wraparound snowfall potentially in the back end. Again, it's not a ton. 9 a.m., that kind of working its way a little closer. This will be all snowfall if it occurs, 9 p.m. there on your Sunday. And then wrapping back in, you can see the drier air trying to eat that up. That's one thing that we will be checking next couple days. It might wrap down a little bit more moisture. If we just have that much historic moisture wrapping around this, it's still possible maybe we could still have some flakes flowing on the backside of this as well as we go into your Monday. So, man, a lot of different layers to this here. So as we check out, again, we'll go ahead and then we'll go past that there to the icing. These numbers are not friendly. And as you'll note there, they kind of come in two different rounds. This is using our strike model through this whole event. And the takeaway is fairly widespread amounts of more than half an inch. That'd be kind of this purplish color. Isolated amounts of more than an inch. And you remember where we mentioned Carroll County a minute ago? Carroll County's down here, right? Didn't do a good job, going around it, but you can see what's right in the middle of that. Some little bits of blue showing up. That would be icefall amounts estimated 2 inches. How do you get that? That's that thunder sleet or thunder freezing rain or just something that we're not terribly interested in. This is one projection here, and I may be making a mistake doing this. I'm going to see if I can force this to show you a slightly more aggressive projection. Because believe it or not, our strike model is not the most aggressive on this. Actually, I think we can pull up a different way here. Just give me a moment to do that. I'm going to look for our HRRR model. And this does not yet go all the way through the event. So again, tonight, not a lot. You can see we're 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. A couple of hundredths of an inch of ice is enough to make you slide off the roads, but this is not crippling. Though we already have a 1/4 inch of ice in locations back there, Water Valley, through midday tomorrow. Let's go back here. That is my 18-hour version, so that's kind of the latest one. Let's make it go farther out. So we're going to pull up the latest here. And part of the reason I run this, and this isn't perfectly perfected like at the TV station, is this allows me to have a more real-time full discussion with you as I notice things, adjust them. So I apologize that might be annoying to some people. I hope it is beneficial in the information we're able to pass along. But as you can see here, through midday tomorrow, most of the icing is still somewhat limited, but 1/10 of an inch of ice is more than enough to slide off the road. So if you're in the pink areas here, you can't travel, like not just don't want to, but can't travel by midday tomorrow, if not sooner. Now watch this. As we go into the evening, 3, 4 o'clock, this is where things get rough in the Delta. We're already up to 0.8 of an inch of ice in Clarksdale, 1/2 an inch of ice in Cleveland and Greenville, and not inconceivable that some of these numbers are low by that point in time. This is 4 p.m. Now, not all of this is going to be the kind of ice that brings down power lines, what we call radial icing. But some of this will be, and so it'll already kind of be stressing the system at that point in time. As we go into the evening, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, now we're up here 3/4 of an inch of ice in Eupora, over an inch of ice in Belzona, in Clarksdale. This is probably already power outage time for some locations in the Delta, maybe even Grenada. And depending on if there's some tree branches that are more delicate where you're at, possibly your area as well. But watch how those numbers just keep climbing into the overnight hours. This is Sunday night. By the way, that blue there, not friendly. Excuse me, this is Saturday night. Now we're early Sunday morning. So let's go back here. Church time Sunday. To answer that question, I'm sure somebody's asked about, are you going to church Sunday morning? No. Not even in Amory, if you're lucky enough. And this would be extreme luck to have 3/10 of an inch in ice. And let's be clear, on a typical icing event, I'd be saying, ooh, 3/10 of an inch in ice, that's rough. And yet 3/10 of an inch of ice is winning the ice lottery in Amory. But notice that bluish sort of color there. That is significant icing for a lot of locations. And as I take this to the end of this forecast projection, it only goes through midday Sunday. This is power outages. This is no travel. This is my pretty oak trees outside. I took pictures in the driveway before it got dark tonight, just because I wanted to know what it looked like in case I had before and after pictures. Hopefully that was for nothing, and hopefully this is all a big deal about nothing. But I want you to know, never in my career have I had a model that at this distance out was showing this kind of ice in my viewing area. This is significant. This is high end. And the wording that the National Weather Service used was this could be crippling ice. So, yeah. What do? There's not a whole lot we can do at this point here. Hopefully we've prepped enough. Hopefully we've planned enough. And hopefully if we're not there now, we're going to get to that location that is safer. This is about as high-end a model as I can show you. I feel like we're friends here. And I feel like you deserve to see the worst case scenario. I can't say this is the 100% worst case scenario, but I can say this is concerning. I'm going to show you a 7-day forecast, and we're going to answer some questions. So as we look at that 7-day forecast, we might have to adjust that icon there, Gabe, because it looks like that cold icon on there, that freezing icon goes behind the 32, but that's not important, all things considered. The issue is obviously we're fighting that freezing point both Saturday and Sunday. And we haven't even dug into the thunderstorm portion of this. I think we'll leave that for 6 o'clock because I hope that last graphic was sobering enough for you. 25 on your Monday, 34 by Tuesday. The one benefit there's no benefit if it's freezing rain. It thaws quicker, but there's no benefit if there's freezing rain. So I shouldn't say it that way. Now, if we have more sleet will keep it colder longer. And that is a prayer that maybe we have a little more sleet on this than the freezing rain. The freezing rain is just the thing we don't want. And into next week, we dry things out. Now, let me just say, I have not looked hard. But if you check that garbage weather app on your phone that comes with your phone and you don't have Mississippi Live weather app, I'll bet it's saying something about that, especially down in central Mississippi. The next storm system also could be frozen, could be snow, could be something else. It's a week out, and we have what is very clearly a significant and arguably crippling ice event on the horizon in the next couple of days. I want to bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, here. And Gabe, behind the scenes at the TV station, a couple different questions we're going to talk about on this. First question I'll ask you is, all your people good? Do y'all have your plan figured out?
Lining it up. We're just kind of getting this all together. And so talking with Annalise a little bit behind the scenes, we're going to talk after the 6 about that final destination. But luckily, there's still enough time to where we can get that figured out and, of course, line that up. The event happening 10 p.m., that's where that first couple sleet pellets, potentially some of those flakes working their way into the forecast.
Let's send you the chroma, because for whatever reason, that monitor is not going to work right now. So we're going to have to deal with that in a minute. So send you over the chroma. Go ahead.
So that's where I would say we need to be getting that safety plan in place. Now, could this have been decided a couple days ago? Yes, but we are going to get that decided before worst comes to worst, and we will be ready to hunker down. But that's what I would recommend to everybody right now. Go talk to your significant other, especially if they're expecting in just a couple of months, to figure out what's going to be most comfortable for them, but also most realistic heading into this event. One of the big things that is our worry is power outages, because we are in Lee County, and you saw those totals just a moment ago, and it still sends chills down my spine that that's a realistic possibility. And so those power outages that could potentially take me out of the equation whenever it comes to weekend coverage. Of course, Matt was talking about that just a moment ago, but we're going to be here as much as we possibly can, but someone here at Mississippi Live Weather will be with you throughout the entire weekend. So I don't want you guys to be...
That's a good point. Like, the beauty of us being decentralized is, let's look at this map, and I'll bring the chat up, and then Gabe, click your mic on behind the scenes so we can keep talking about this, but I want to bring the chat.
Okay.
All these buttons worked on Monday, by the way. Okay, so as we bring Gabe's mic back up here, part of the reason we have decentralized, and he is at the station, and I am here at home in Lee County, and he is eventually going to be at his house, and Maggie will be at hers, and Caleb will be down in the Golden Triangle. The idea is, if we spread out enough, at least one of us is going to have enough power, enough internet to be able to pull this off. And we do have redundancies in place. Got an app on my phone now where if I need to reset the computers back at the station, I can do it by clicking a button back here. Tom Bigby Electric Power Cooperative reached out to me earlier today and said, hey, if everything goes the worst, we have generators. We are right here on the fiber backbone. We can get you on to broadcast that way. So we have lots of different redundancies so that we will continue to be able to broadcast. And the folks at Wizard 106, one of our radio partners, every one of your cars still probably has a radio in it, and maybe some of your clocks do as well. But we have radio partners. We will have that on social media, how we'll be able to broadcast if really is necessary. But again, there's lots of people saying, what about these locations? If you know where you're at on this map, I have not changed this over the last 24 hours. And I would say, if you are in the orange here, or if you're even close to the orange here, someone's saying, Fulton, you're right on the line. I'm not perfect. Itawamba County, we need to be concerned. Monroe County, we need to be concerned. The heaviest ice, though, and I do want to go back to back on this, because now I'm curious. The most significant ice, how does that compare on this to where the latest HRRR model has that? So give me a moment to populate that in here, because I want to see them back to back and see if we need to make some significant adjustments. And listen, this is a model. It could be wrong, but I'm not sure that it is.
Matt, just talking with Annalise behind the scenes, she asked me a question that I never thought I'd be asked before. But with this amount of ice, I've also never lived through an event like this. With this amount of ice, roofs aren't going to be of concern, right? No,
that'd be more snow.
Okay.
You would now maybe ice sliding off at some point as it thaws on the back end, that you could get sheets of ice to fall off it. And that is something, sheets of ice falling off a wire, whether it's telephone wires or something like that, as the ice falls off, that could be impactful and dangerous and harmful. But we're not going to probably see collapses from this kind of ice. The snow loads, if you had feet of snow, then maybe. But ice like this, it's more when it starts thawing and falls off of stuff. I've watched ice falling off a tower when I was in Texas, and it broke a car windshield. So it was not quite this much ice, though. So keep that in perspective. Okay, so if we're looking here at about where this is, I'm going to keep my hand right there of Eupora, and I want to show our peak impacts there. That lines up almost perfectly with what the latest HRRR has. So we've been showing you this graphic since yesterday. I think I still fairly solidly agree on this here. Unfortunately, this is probably going to be significant power outages for some spots for a while. I know this is not where we're at necessarily as far as everything's concerned, but we do have school closings. I haven't labeled school closings, but right now it's more just general closings here. I might have to move that so you can see it. Just give me a second to kind of drag my browser here. But school closings at Mississippi Live Weather, msliveweather.com. ICC already done from Monday. North Mississippi Health Services has some closings that they're talking about, as well as the Sanders Clinic. Not really many schools at this point, but they're going to make that call when the time comes, and they can submit those using msliveweather.com/closing/submissions. Yes, we have had some fake ones, pretty obvious. So, but different people that want to submit those, go to that website, fill out the form. It'll do back and forth. Love you. Happy birthday to my wife, who's going to try to enjoy some moments of sanity out of the house before she's stuck with me and the kids for a few days, because even we are going to be impacted with that. So closings, msliveweather.com. You can watch live on there as well. Lots of other information on that website. There are warming shelters. Gabe, on the BAM computer, would you pull up the warming shelters that the North Mississippi Storm Chasers have aggregated? They have something in the chat there. Let me know when that happens. I'll probably be a few minutes, but they have a list that they are working on there. And again, appreciate our partner there, the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. There will be some warming shelters out there because obviously it's going to be cold after this. I see someone saying, Matt, cancel school. Thank God I'm not in charge of that. We'll display them. But the cancellations, that's all your superintendent. And those folks there do a great job as well. I see some other folks saying these places are closed. You need to go to the website to put it on there. We are a staff of very limited number, so we don't have time to put all that in. But if you can put it in, we will do approvals on that there. I see someone saying, what about Pontotoc County? And I'm not going to do a lot of whatabouts, but the reason why I'm going to answer that one there is because I spent a ton of time talking about Tupelo or Eupora. And again, some of these spots have higher population centers, but it's because you're on the edge. But I don't think there's a question in my mind when we look at, I'm going to go pull up our camera. Well, actually, we can show up that analysis here, and we look at the ice storm impacts. If we're talking about Pontotoc County, you're right here in the middle of this, right? If I go on the nationwide viewpoint of this, and we said this at the top of the show, there's a bullseye, and unfortunately, it's North Mississippi. And if there's a bullseye in North Mississippi, unfortunately, the middle of that peak stripe is right there in Pontotoc County. So what about Pontotoc County? I think there's a high likelihood of you having impactful winter weather in the form of ice and sleet, and you're going to have some power outages, and you're going to have some problems. So you're really in the heart of one of our threats. It's one of the reasons why we are not going to be driving the roads. We had that conversation as a team a little bit ago. We're not going to be we're live on the scene. We're not doing that. We're going to be using these. Our cameras of the North Mississippi Storm Chasers already looking down at the ground, already watching the trees, already watching the roadways, so that we're prepared for when things get iced over, and they will, in Pontotoc County, in Union County, in Lafayette County, one of those other locations kind of in the heart. And I want to read you, I put it on social media, but I do want to read you a couple things. I want to read you a post that I put out there a little bit ago. And this, by the way, part of a discussion right from the National Weather Service. Talking about liquid rainfall amounts are pretty high, among the 99th percentile, meaning very, very high levels of liquid moisture across North Mississippi, which favors a convective thunderstorm profile. These high amounts of moisture could lead to crippling ice accumulations in areas like Oxford and Tupelo, where ice accumulations are forecast to be the highest. This will be the area to watch to see how much warming can squeak into Mississippi from this developing low. And that's the thing, our developing low hopefully brings a little bit more warmth in here. So have we stocked up on bread and milk? We've got both. I need that milk for that coffee. We also have backup power here at the house, and we have backup internet. So hopefully we have the redundancy. Will it ever melt? Ice melts faster than snow typically does, so hopefully. But Corinth, you're in the path. You're going to have the issues with ice accumulations. And maybe we're lucky, and it would be really lucky, but maybe we just end up with an inch of ice that's horizontal ice, not on the trees. That'd be best case scenario. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here, but before we wrap it up, I do want to mention that our meteorologist, Maggie McCauley, every morning this week, she's been on 6:37, 7:30 a.m., but tomorrow morning she gets a crew alongside her. I'll be up, our meteorologist Dave Maynard will be up, and our meteorologist Cato Edelblut will be up. Who knows? We'll probably tag in Ethan Foster from where he's at down there in Monroe County. It's going to be a whole crew of people across North Mississippi. We'll be talking to emergency managers. We'll be talking to local officials. And we'll be giving you the information to keep you safe and let you know what's going on. That's going to start tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. And we'll still probably be on at 7, and we'll still probably be on at 7:30. Because as a weather-first organization, we can do that. What are we covering up? Rendered graphics of what the weather is already going to be talking about. So keep it here for the latest. We'll keep you ahead of the storm. And if you do not yet have our Mississippi Live Weather app, I highly encourage you to download it. It is free and available for all of those various devices there. Again, download the app for iOS and Android devices. And if you do have a smart TV, you can't find us on YouTube. But I would say that, the apps, the mobile apps, we appreciate the 150,000 of you plus that have downloaded our mobile apps and about the 170,000 total of download of our apps. That is how we can stay on the air. Support Room to Room, like you see below me there. Support all of the sponsors that we have shown over and over again throughout the broadcast there in the corner. Those are the people that make it possible for us to do what we do. Our next live broadcast, that's going to be coming up again here in the Room to Room Weather Center at 6 p.m. We'll be back at 6 p.m. looking at some of the other graphics, in particular, that snowfall potential coming up. What does that mean for some of these same models on accumulations of snowfall? We will interpret that. We'll break that down in more detail. We'll also look at some of the probability graphics, like our ice finder that we've been talking about all week long, and any upgrades related to that. That's coming up on Mississippi Live Weather at 6 p.m. Gabe, I see something there, but what? So, you've got the warming shelters. Before we go, I do want to have that up there, and I can pop that up on my end here. So give me just a moment. I should be able to pop. Oh man, where do I have that? Give me just a second here, Gabe. Maybe I can't. I know at one point I had that. Man, Gabe, we'll get that figured out for 6. We will get the way I can pop that graphic up at 6. Actually, no. I mean, what are we tossing to? Like I said a minute ago, let's pull it up behind the scenes here. We'll get those warming shelters up for you. So I apologize that I'm kind of bumbling around while I'm figuring this out. One of these, give me a moment, should be that double box.
If you want to pull me up in the small picture, I can do that.
This one will work right here.
All right, so there you're getting a look at the list of warming shelters. This is a list put together by the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. And of course, as you can see, this is all across Mississippi, consisting of Alcorn County, Coahoma County, Grenada County, Lafayette County, all those areas up there towards the northwest. Definitely need to take a look at this list, even consisting of LaFleur, Marshall, Monroe. We've been mentioning you kind of on that line, so there's even a few counties listed there. But basically this entire list that you see on the screen right there in front of you, that's where you can go for some warmth if you do not have access to that tonight or even heading into tomorrow night. Now, a big concern with the Maynard household is there going to be any warmth that we get to enjoy if our power were to go out? And we're looking at this list and definitely assessing our options about this being a possibility. But the biggest thing with that, though, is if you have a concern about power going out, may want to go right now because of that potential power outage. Once those power outages happen, Matt, the concern is that that's also going to be paired with travel hazards lining up around that same time.
Let's say this. I would be careful saying go now. And the reason I'd be careful saying that is I don't think that they are going to have, I don't know for sure they'll have water and food and things to sustain people for days yet at this point here. And we're ahead of the point where we necessarily need that. I don't know what the right answer is on that. But I want to make sure that, people have to make their own independent decisions on when they need to go to that. I would just, I just caution that, entire counties can't go to these locations. And I know that we have people freaking out, and it would be what's the word I'm looking for? Insensitive of me to not say that. So I number one, I don't want to be quoted saying go right now.
Well, the concern,
but know that this exists if push comes to shove.
Well, the concern is if the power goes out, and I was talking to Annalise about this earlier, the power goes out, more than likely that means roads are very hazardous, if not undrivable at that point, right? I mean, am I wrong for saying that?
Well, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say that, there's going to be some issues and roads are going to be difficult. But again, there's two things we're trying to give here. We're trying to give information, but we're also trying not to go too far. You address the first threat when you have to deal with the first threat, the second threat when you have to deal with that. So do we expect power outages? Yes. Travel disruptions? Yes. Plan accordingly with your people on where you go. And then if warming shelters are necessary, then that's a box down the road that we check. We'll have more coming up here during our 6 o'clock broadcast. Keep it here for the latest.
At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
Even though Gabe grew up in Alabama, Mississippi has now become his home and his family. And one thing about Gabe is he keeps his family safe.